The name for AEW on TNT revealed. The latest news revolving All Out pay-per-view buys. Also, a lot of returns happening in WWE and the latest with big casts. All coming up next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti. For the best news and conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Ralph, we'll start with All Elite Wrestling on TNT, which starts 2 weeks from Wednesday. And we don't have a name for the show yet. It's been rumored that it was going to be Tuesday Night Dynamite when it was on Tuesday. Rumored to be Wednesday Night Dynamite recently when it was announced that it would be on Wednesday. But now we got news that All Elite Wrestling has filed for the trademark All Elite Wrestling Dynamite. What do you think of this name for the show? All Elite Wrestling Dynamite.
I don't think it's a great name, but I certainly don't have an issue with it. I think it's fine. I mean, it's similar to what they were filing copyrights for going back when AEW was formed, or it might have even been just before it was formed. But we knew that Dynamite, as it seems, is going to be somehow incorporated with the title of the show. So I guess that is something that we anticipated from the very beginning. So I can't say I'm really surprised. I don't hate it. I can't say I love it, but honestly, all that matters is if they go out there and continue to produce a quality product, something that's at standard and able to compete with WWE, or at the very least be different from WWE, which is what they want to really try to portray in the product that they want to put out there for people. So the name, while it's an important aspect of the show, I think as long as they go out there and deliver in the ring, and the production value is where it needs to be, I think that's something that people will focus on a little more than just the name itself.
Now, I find it kind of funny because WWE always has this thing where they take wrestlers' names, and they shorten them. Like we had Eric Rowan to Rowan, Luke Harper to Harper, and it goes on and on and on. I feel like AEW is doing that with the name Dynamite. Like it was Tuesday Night Dynamite or Wednesday Night Dynamite. Now they're just shortening it to Dynamite. Personally, I don't like the name All Elite Wrestling Dynamite. It just doesn't have the same ring as Wednesday Night Dynamite, Tuesday Night Dynamite. Had a ring to it, but I don't see why they can't just run with AEW on TNT. Like it just works. You have the NBA on TNT. You want this to be a sports league. Why not make it just AEW on TNT?
Yeah.
And it fits. Yeah. I mean, it's the Twitter handle, so why not just keep it that way? But hopefully we get something announced maybe on the new episode of Road to AEW on TNT. I know that if it changed the series name to All Elite Wrestling Dynamite, it's a much longer title, and you only have so many characters on the YouTube titles. But I do want to talk about certain numbers here before we head to the first show on TNT. Obviously, the only real data that we have right now are the pay-per-view buys, and All Elite Wrestling All Out. Their numbers were decent, but they were down from Double or Nothing. They were at about 101,000 pay-per-view buys, which was slightly down from Double or Nothing. I know they were up in the UK. Overall, internationally, though, through Fight TV, we're down, and about the same for Bleacher Report Live. So is this a reason to be concerned for AEW heading into TNT?
I don't think it's necessarily a reason to be concerned. I certainly don't think they're going to be happy with numbers decreasing in any way, shape, or form, because the whole prerogative, I would imagine the whole goal would be to increase views and increase pay-per-view buys and increase intrigue in the product. I think part of the problem, obviously, is the fact that, like we always say on the show, they're still very much at the very beginning of this whole AEW production and show itself. So whether it was one pay-per-view, 3 pay-per-views, 5 pay-per-views, however many it's been over the course of the last, probably about year or so, you'd want to see those numbers increase. And obviously it's probably disheartening a little bit to see that they didn't, but they're still very much in the honeymoon phase. And I think part of the issue with this was when they had their first couple of pay-per-views, obviously you're going to get that initial intrigue. Maybe some of the fans watched it and said, you know what, this really isn't for me. So maybe that was obviously a big aspect of it, where fans tuned in and realized it wasn't a product for them, and they decided not to purchase this pay-per-view. The other big thing I think that is probably a turnoff for people more than anything is the price. It's not cheap. It's not like you're paying the $10 a month for WWE Network, and over the course of, a year, you're paying 120 some odd dollars, I guess. You're paying 50 some odd dollars every time you purchase a pay-per-view. And granted, it's not every month, but, for some people who are living paycheck to paycheck, or, in financial situations, coming up with $50 for an AEW event isn't necessarily the easiest thing. And I know people may laugh at that, but I've seen people gripe about the price of the pay-per-view before on social media and say that, for a startup company, which they still very much are, it's a little strange that they're asking people to pay that much money up front.
That's a great point, Ralph. That is a great point.
I can't see them dropping the price, though, because it's difficult to go to a $50 asking price and then say, you know what, we're going to offer it at a cheaper rate. Certainly they can do it, but, and not everybody's going to come up with $50. And then obviously we're going to talk about Moxley dropping out because of the staph infection. So all of these things going on, all of these things combined, it's not like the numbers were terrible, but they did decrease, and I can't imagine they're satisfied with that.
Now, I'm going to say it's not really a concern. You brought up all the same points I would have brought up. Yes, the price is huge. I think there was a time where a bunch of people would get together, throw down $5, $10, and they could just pay for it. But unless most people are watching it by themselves or with one other person, so it's still $50, $25 that they have to put in towards a show. Yes, they're only doing it once every 3 or 4 months, but that's still, like you said, if someone's watching paycheck to paycheck or living paycheck to paycheck, that might be the difference between what they eat for 3 days or what they watch for 4 hours. So,
sure.
I think also the match with Moxley being canceled, I think was a huge thing. And that's what AEW believes was part of the reason where the drop-off was.
Yeah.
I think maybe also the fact that the main event was Jericho versus Hangman. Yes, I know Jericho's a draw, but not many people know who Hangman Page is. So maybe that turned some people off. Maybe also, the first 4 shows were good. I don't think any of them were like terrible, but there might have been some people that were turned off by what they saw on Fyter Fest with the Michael Nakazawa match, with the Street Fighter spot where the Young Bucks dress up like Ken and Ryu. Fight for the Fallen was a good show, but maybe all the matches were a little too long and people were turned off by it. So overall, I think this shouldn't be a concern for when they go on TNT. If we start seeing ratings where they're not pulling in what they expected in the ratings, then we'll start being concerned. But speaking of ratings, believe it or not, WWE's ratings went up this week for Monday Night Raw from last week, which had Stone Cold Steve Austin. You would think that would be a big draw in ratings. Actually, it was one of their lowest rated shows ever on a non-holiday episode. So they bounced back this week with good ratings and a lot of progression of storylines from Clash of Champions and this past Raw, where we saw a lot of returns as well. We saw the return of, and it wasn't expected returns. Luke Harper coming out of nowhere, Rusev, AOP, 3 acts that you were wondering where the hell they've been for such a long time. And we also got a cameo from Kane with them being in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's the mayor of Knox County, so of course he's going to be there, where he won the 24/7 championship as Mayor Glenn Jacobs. So, Ralph, do you see anything from these returns? Do you see any optimism with these 4 returns?
Yeah. Well, we talked about it a little while ago when we were trying to go over some of the things that we're going to discuss on the show tonight. I'm not terribly optimistic. When you go back and look at how some of these acts have been booked, I shouldn't really say acts, but how these individuals have been booked to this point or previously, it doesn't lead you to be very optimistic. Rusev, while he did have initially a good run where he was the IC champion, that culminated with obviously a loss at WrestleMania to Cena when he dropped the title. Intercontinental. U.S. title, same thing, kind of the same thing. Either way, he did drop the title to Cena. He's had some ups and downs, peaks and valleys throughout his career. Probably the biggest thing that he's known for is obviously the Rusev Day thing. Right. So he's got that on his resume. Kane, obviously, I think that's like a one-off thing. I can't imagine he comes back for any extended length of time. AOP, I was pretty, I was optimistic about them first coming up from NXT. They weren't necessarily booked very strongly. Paired with Drake Maverick, that didn't necessarily go anywhere. My biggest thing with that is they just don't book tag teams to look strong. I mean, sometimes it's week to week where they're champions and then they drop the belts, and not necessarily them, but you see this with the Revival, you saw it with the OC, you see it with just about every tag team that they have under contract. So, am I optimistic? Not all that much. We'll have to see what happens from here on out, though.
Yeah, if I have any optimism, it's definitely Luke Harper, the story with him coming out of nowhere to help Eric Rowan, a former tag team partner of his. I'd like to see where this story progresses. I know this whole Roman attacker mystery storyline has been severely botched and really went nowhere, but maybe the addition of Luke Harper might make things interesting. We are recording this before SmackDown, and I know there's a segment where Rowan is doing a sit-down interview tonight on SmackDown, so maybe we'll get some more clarity into the story now that Luke Harper's in it. I also liked the little promo cut with the AOP. They're sitting there in their suits. They're speaking in a foreign language, and there were subtitles, which I'm perfectly fine with that. I wish there was more of that with other foreign wrestlers in WWE. If we saw that with Asuka doing backstage segments where she cut promos backstage with subtitles, or Shinsuke Nakamura or Rusev, whatever the case may be, I wish there was more of that. The tag team division needs some kind of adrenaline kick, a big boost. Hopefully AOP is the answer to that. I am interested to see who their first tag team will be coming out of this long hiatus. I know the OC and the War Raiders are doing something right now. You got the Revival, so I don't see heel versus heel dynamic right now. Same with Rude and Ziggler as the Raw Tag Team Champions. So maybe they go after the New Day on SmackDown. Who knows? But
one of the strangest things coming out of all this was the resurgence of the storyline of Maria and Mike Kanellis. I don't know. And this is one of the things that drives me crazy about WWE. It's just like there's no consistency week in and week out. Obviously you've got this was a storyline that they were trying to build, I think, going back maybe a month or two ago. It didn't really go anywhere. It revolved mostly around the 24/7 championship. They dropped it, and then all of a sudden it shows back up on Raw, and it's this whole baby daddy situation where Rusev's the father and maybe not really I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
It's like I think this is like a Paul Heyman or Vince Russo all over this. And Paul Heyman being there, obviously you would think he's the one that came up with this. And we all know Vince Russo is nowhere to be found in WWE, and he should be that way. But speaking of tag teams and someone that was in WWE, no longer there, we do have to end this episode on a very sad note. What happened over the weekend with Big Cass and Joey Janela, they were on a show for WrestlePro. It was a farewell show for Pat Buck, as he is eventually going to be going to WWE. I guess Big Cass attacked Joey Janela in the locker room, and they had police get involved in this whole ordeal. And Big Cass has basically gone out through Enzo Amore on Twitter saying that he is going to take time off of wrestling to focus on his well-being, to focus on his depression. And actually just minutes before we recorded, he tweeted out, "I'm sorry. I'm going to keep fighting. Promise me you'll do the same. We are all in this together." So yes, we know that depression is a very big thing in mental health, and it's talked about all the time. We wish Big Cass the best. Hopefully he could get through this and get back into the ring. The thing with Cass here, it seems like he really wants to get back into wrestling, and get back to where he was in WWE, get back into that good standing where, he could be a name again and people could talk to him in a positive way. I know he's had his troubles, but do you think we have seen the last of Big Cass?
Uh, I mean, as far as wrestling is concerned, you always tell people you can never say never. And there's been a million examples of that when you look at WWE. And some people have battled with issues with, drug issues, drinking, whatever else, all different types of demons. I mean, there's some success stories out there, obviously, right now. Maybe Scott Hall, Jake the Snake, obviously, they've had some good success stories working with DDP. I just hope that whatever he has to do to get himself right in a better frame of mind and happy and overcome whatever demons he's struggling with, he does that. And, maybe someday, maybe not so soon, but maybe in the future, we do see him back. And even if it's in a small role, guys always end up making appearances and making their way back to WWE, even if it's in like I said, a small role or a cameo type thing. Things like that go a long way, just to see guys battle their issues and their inner demons and then come back just to make those appearances. So I'm going to honestly say I'm rooting for him, and I hope we do see him at some point. And I just hope that he gets better and he's able to overcome whatever he's struggling with.
Now, obviously, depression is something that does not get beaten overnight.
Sure.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there either fighting with it or know someone that's fighting with this. So we know this is not an overnight fix for Big Cass, and it's going to be a big uphill battle for him. I would love to see him back in the ring. I mean, from what we've seen so far around the independent scene, he was having big matches with Jon Moxley and, doing stuff with Enzo Amore again. If he can get back to where he was and have a positive well-being again, I would love to see him in AEW. They need someone like him in AEW, and he was getting in really good shape. He was from pictures that I've seen, he was in tremendous shape and much better shape than he ever was in WWE. So, I mean, if he can fight through what he needs to do and get back into the ring and be in a positive state of mind, get him in AEW, because I think he would be an absolute huge get for AEW because they need someone like him, I think. And just having that struggle to overcome, you could obviously put that into a storyline and make it better for him, and people would be behind him, and it would just be such an uplifting moment if he's able to fight this, get on whether WWE, NXT, AEW, just runs the independent circuit. It'd be just nice to see him back in the ring again. So again, best of luck to Big Cass, and hopefully he gets back on the right edge. So let us know what you think of everything on the latest news in AEW and WWE on the comments below. Don't forget to share this all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe and hit that bell for notifications for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. For Rob Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.